Hello, and welcome to the Payday 2 Starter Guide. For more information about the Starter Guide, check out the first episode linked in the video description. Today we're going to be talking our veritable arsenal in Payday 2. I'm not going to talk every weapon, there's well over 100, but we're going to talk the major weapon archetypes that you're going to see, and I'll offer some pointers on specific guns you'll have access to at a low level. But weapons are expensive, and because they're so expensive, we'll be taking a look at most of them in my main account. I've got $675 million to spend there, it's fine. The light rifle is how you start this game. Weapons like the AM car, the Union 556, they're a type of assault rifle categorized with damage between 39 and about 64 with high fire rates and ammo pickup and magazines typically containing 30 to 60 rounds. These are great weapons for new players on smaller maps as you can hit most enemies that would pose a threat at you even with their lower accuracy. With a light rifle, I typically opt for as high of a stability stat as I can get while using a tactical compensator to boost the accuracy as well. A competitor's compensator is another great option. It's just a bunch of little stat boosts all across the board, and it's super helpful. If you like the Union 556, the UAR and AK-5 are other great weapons in this class, boasting high fire rates without DLC, and they're also on consoles. I would also like to mention the Clarion, which shoots 1,000 bullets in a minute. It's crazy. But the weapon I'd like to turn special attention to is the JP36. On paper, it's a slight upgrade to the AM car, but with a much higher pickup rate. Nearly 10 to 20 rounds with a perk deck with walk-in closet completed versus the 9 to 16 the AM car can pull. And of the three light rifles with that pickup rate, including the Commando 553 and Clarion, it's the only one you don't need DLC for. Just because a weapon has lower damage doesn't mean that it's worse off. Experiment with lower damage weapons as well, and you might find a dependable firearm. They typically have high pickup rates to compensate for their low damage. You're going to be shooting a lot more bullets, so it makes sense to pick up a lot more bullets. In the 80 to 120 damage range for assault rifles are battle rifles. These include things like the AMR-16, the Falcon rifle, and the Gecko 762. This damage range is a bit strange. The weapons typically have higher fire rates than average assault rifles, but automatic fire will leave you with very little ammo. Battle rifles are best reserved for single fire on individual enemies and short bursts to the head in crowds. While fully loaded and scavenger can help these weapons collect more ammo, you might just want to invest in an ammo bag instead. These weapons typically only pick up a few rounds per box, but make up for it with damage typically double that of your light rifle. In particular, I'd like to call attention to the golden AK-762. Not necessarily because it's a good option, but because it's more expensive and less concealable than the regular one because it's, made of gold. Another weapon of note is the Eagle Heavy Rifle, which you can purchase right away regardless of level for a rather accessible price. These are great-ish rifles if you're a marksman who's also drawn to the allure of the spray and pray. They can kind of play both at once. Sitting in at about 168 damage, the designated marksman rifles, or DMRs as they're commonly shortened to, are the full realization of the transition the battle rifle started. High damage but very low on the pickups, and very small magazines. You're going to want to single fire these guys to get the most out of them. I think the most notable ones are probably the Car 4, AK rifle, and broomstick pistol. Yeah, all three of these weapons have DMR kits. The issue is that their pickup rate is stuck to 1 ammo per box, always and forever. So it's a nice way to take a distant roll on a budget, but for your usual heisting purposes, I actually have 2 recommendations. The Cavity 9mm is a really compact rifle for stealth play, and the Gallant rifle you get from the Aldstone's Heritage missions can boast a very impressive 22 rounds to a magazine, and it's got some beautiful sound design. If you have the Ultimate Edition, you might want to cap these with single fire only given their very low pickup rates, though there are a small handful of instances which you might want to go full auto with a DMR, most notably as a way to deal with bulldozers in your personal space. Blows them right out of there. Primary shotguns fit into 2 categories, shell loaders and mag-fed. Shell loaders usually sit between 55 to 100 damage and can hold anywhere from 6 to over a dozen shotgun shells in them. Their best strength is also their worst weakness though. You need to load them with individual shells once they run dry. You can interrupt this reload quickly and easily and shoot with a half-empty magazine, but if you're empty and your Raven takes 18 shotgun shells, and you need 18 shotgun shells, you're going to be there a while. I strongly recommend Shotgun CQB Aced and Bloodthirst Aced if you're going to use one of these things. As for mag loaders, these at first look like weaker alternatives with faster reloads, but get this. With close by Aced, their magazines fit 15 more shells. And if you're using an akimbo with a magazine, that's 15 per shotgun. For this reason, I like to give special attention to the Yzma, which can hold up to 26 shells at a time with the Big Brother magazine, and it's fully automatic. I'd also like to give special attention to the Breaker, Moscone, and Jocelyn. These weapons have very, very high damage, but the latter two are double barrel shotguns. Fire twice, and you're looking about a couple seconds before you can fire again. The Breaker has a magazine, but it's got a lower pickup rate than the other two, one of the worst in the game. Oh, we can go lower, but just keep that in mind. You might need an ammo bag or a very, very efficient secondary with the Breaker. It's definitely not for beginners, but you get it really early and it's kind of cheap, so I don't know. Light machine guns, or LMGs, are a lot like battle rifles, though with large magazines and plenty of reserves, with good pickups to boot. LMGs either have 80 or 120 damage, with the higher damage ones typically having lower pickup rates, longer reloads, and or stronger recoil. That said, pretty much all your options are excellent ones, and while you can't aim down the sights like you can with other weapons, you can equip the Lion bipod so you can deploy the weapon on any flat surface in front of you, which cuts your recoil down to 0. I'd like to give special attention though to the RPK, which is available starting at level 0 and is one of the better options for close range. It's not a very expensive weapon either, so if you like breaking out big guns, you'll be liking one of these. Sniper rifles are a lot like DMRs, but with smaller magazines and slower fire rates made up for by a whole lot more damage and the ability to pierce thin walls, heads, and shields, making these one of the few weapons that does not have a problem fighting that unit face to face. Sniper rifles are usually unlocked at later levels and fall into a couple categories, the larger magazines and faster fire rates having lower damage. But of the bunch, I strongly recommend the R93. You get 6 shots to a magazine with close to 500 damage a shot. I also absolutely recommend the skill Graze, which creates a large cylinder around the path your bullet took, damaging anyone that was about a meter away from the bullet. This lets you grab multiple kills very, very, very easily. Akimbo lets you take any 2 secondary weapons as a primary. You fire both weapons at the same time and they typically have double the pickup rate of a single weapon, though check the wiki before you run one as many options just are not that good. We'll touch more on pistols, SMGs, and secondary shotguns in a bit, so I thought I'd waltz past these guys kinda quick. Take the Akimbo skill under Gunslinger to get more max ammo. Bows, flamethrowers, grenade launchers, and miniguns make up our special weapons category. These are high-level weapons mostly meant to have fun on lower difficulties, though I'll make note of a few favorites. The GL40 grenade launcher is powerful, and it's a swift reloader with a good pickup rate. The Planesrider bow is relatively quick to draw and fire. The light crossbow is a must-have for the game's toughest difficulty. Well, when that launched, it's okay now. But you can give them explosive arrows. You're poison, so you get some variety there. And the XL556 microgun has the damage of a light rifle, but fires at double the fire rate the Clarion shoots at with 750 rounds to a magazine. I'll also mention the saw while I'm at it, as the OVA 9000 saw can bust open safe deposit boxes, doors, and some other obstacles wherever you see the saw blade icon. This makes it a valuable resource for a bank heist, as you can open up safe deposit boxes with a quick tap of the blade. That'll cover my thoughts on primary weapons, but now let's go over the secondaries and work from there. I should probably write a little more in the scripts. Pistols are a lot like assault rifles in their damage tiers, though they are commonly single fire only. Light pistols do about 40 damage with high fire rates, medium pistols about 70 with middling stats, and magnum pistols about 120 with slower fire rates, and revolvers deal 180 damage but fire quickly, their downside being their small, non-upgradable magazine. Before I mention some specific pistols, I'd like to give special attention to Trigger Happy Basic, which gives pistols a 120% damage boost for 2 seconds after every hit. Not necessarily a kill, just a hit. And not 120% of the damage, it's 120% more damage, a 2.2 times multiplier. If you're going to be using a pistol a lot, you might want to work towards obtaining the skill, as it can turn a 70 damage pistol into a 154 damage pistol and make a 180 damage revolver deal nearly 400 damage a shot. Now then, for some specific pistols, I personally recommend the Crosskill and, oddly enough, the Shimano 88. The starter pistol is nice and light, and with skill investment is very capable of dealing with threats of all kinds, and the Crosskill is a superbly balanced pistol in terms of magazine size, damage, reload speed, and accuracy. But if you're looking for something off-kilter, there are 2 immediate candidates, the Strike and the 5.7 AP. The Strike is a light pistol like the Shimano 88, but it can be toggled to automatic fire. Its fire rate starts at 909, but can be pushed up to 1364 rounds a minute with a skill, making it the 3rd fastest bullet-firing weapon in the game. Its pickup rate isn't good enough to keep the thing topped off when you're fully automatic running around and gunning, but it's a fun gimmick weapon, and I've been able to push the thing into dealing thousands of damage a second. The 5.7 is on the opposite side of the spectrum. It's slow and kind of clunky, but its name tips off its neat little gimmick. AP stands for armor penetrating. Yes, it can shoot through shields and walls just like a sniper rifle. Like the strike though, it's a bit low on the pickup rate, chain of command, but I find it's a good complement for players who'll be spending time in the middle of the firefight. It gives them an easy panic button option to get out of sticky situations. The 5.7 and the Strike are the only two pistols I really feel have an ammo conservation problem, so it's best to use them sparingly and pair them with an efficient primary like an LMG or a light rifle. Submachine guns are effectively secondary assault rifles, usually equipped to automatic out of the box, but can be switched to single fire just the same. You'll probably notice though that your options stop at light and battle rifles, no DMRs for your secondary slot. Even though the battle rifle options have typically lower pickup rates than even the primary, you'll be running dry a lot more. Bring an ammo bag with one of these if you need to bring one of these. Even then though, I'd rather take the Eagle Heavy Rifle or the AMR than the Jackal or the Krinkov. SMGs are best enjoyed small, fast, and angry, with my personal picks being the Mark 10 for having an extended speed pull magazine via the Spec Ops pack, Giro's Micro Uzi for some high concealment critical hit builds, but hands down my favorite SMG these days is probably the Compact 5. DLC free, it boasts all around solid stats and a fantastic ammo pickup. Give it a shot if you haven't yet, or if it's been a few years. They patched this thing near the end of 2017, and now it's gone from objectively bad to objectively solid. You can equip any of these akimbo, but once again I strongly advise against akimbo battle rifle SMGs. Their pickup rate is literally worthless. Secondary shotguns are much like their primary counterparts, though I do want to talk about a couple specific weapons. The Street Sweeper looks like it has a magazine, but it does not, so close by aced will not affect it. The Goliath and Grim do have a magazine, but the former is single fire only, which can make it troublesome for players, and the latter is very low on damage. Triple Op Buckshot gives it a damage boost, but most people prefer to load up the Grim with Dragon's Breath rounds to set enemies on fire. As for the Judge and GSPS, these are doing Mosconi levels of damage, but the Judge has a much higher damage per second output. This is countered by giving the Judge the worst pickup rate on any shotgun in Payday 2. So I personally prefer the GSPS for its slower but more effective combat output. You can dual wield the Judge, Goliath, and the Grim, and of the three, I think the Goliath and Grim are your best bets for buckshot and incendiary rounds respectively. Plus the Goliaths have a nice and boomy sound that makes me happy. Yep, that's a rocket launcher. Rocket launchers are sidearm exclusive and deal a ton of damage. The downside though is that they're slow reloaders and do not get back ammo from drops. You would need an ammo bag for one of these. You could always bring the Arbiter, China Puff, or Compact 40 if you want a renewable explosive though, each one having 5.3 and 1 grenade, respectively, with more pipes and a mag meaning less damage. Let's make a quick detour to show off that, yeah, there is a secondary saw, and you can equip them both at the same time. Also, you can saw enemies in half with it, though I don't recommend this as it's a waste of saw durability and does next to nothing damage-wise. Instead, let's talk about the MA-17 Flamethrower, which is functionally a lot like the Mach 1 we skipped over in primary specials. You might look at the low damage and be inclined to equip high temperature fuel, but first we need to talk about fire damage over time. An ignited enemy takes 300 damage every half second after 1 second has elapsed, but being reignited resets this timer. The damage of the flamethrower doesn't make a difference, so I recommend the low temperature fuel for either flamethrower so you can tap or sweep the thing across enemies just to ignite them once and let the damage over time take care of them. You get more ammo this way, the damage difference is negligible, but you get a whole lot more ammo. Melee weapons are tools that you use to beat, bludgeon, slice, and dice your opponents. Most of them aren't that useful, but electrical ones like the buzzer and electric brass knuckles stun an enemy in their tracks, letting you cause them to surrender. You can slip past or score an easy kill that way as well. Fast swinging melees like the pencil, Nova Shank, or trench knife score 5 hits in 1 second, and the 450 charge damage melees, the Ice Pick, the Rezkoi, El Verdugo, and the Katana worth mentioning, do a ton of damage, and are swinging rather quickly. The former 3 swing once every 2/3 of a second, with the last one every half second, making them great for additional quick damage, whereas the Fire Axer's Vihander can take over 1 full second to swing. Cards, knives, axes, shurikens, and javelins can all be picked back up after throwing them, making them usually good tools for handling enemies when low on ammo. Usually. The cards deal only 40 damage a shot, whereas shurikens deal 100 damage plus 250 damage every half second for 5.5 seconds via poison. Knives and axes deal a bit over 1,000 damage, and javelins deal over 3,200 damage but are thrown very slowly. Of the bunch, I think shurikens and throwing axes are your best bet. Axes are thrown quicker than the knives, and shurikens deal poison damage. But I won't object if you bring the javelin, because nothing quite beats killing a cloaker in one hit by throwing it through his skull. He deserves it. Frag grenades deal 1600 damage and do not replenish. You get 3 each. Despite looking like they should, the Matryoshka grenades do not explode into smaller grenades, they're just a reskin of the regular frag. Grenades can be shot out of the air though, so I recommend bringing the dynamite from the Western pack instead. That can't be blown up by enemies, but it's otherwise identical. And because people are going to comment, yes, fully loaded Aced exists, and Stockpiler, the bot skill exists, both of which will let you get back Throwables, but you don't naturally pick up grenades. There's nothing left to pick up after you throw it, and enemies don't carry grenades on them. Between Molotovs and incendiary grenades, bring either, honestly. You get more incendiary grenades than Molotovs and they fly further, but Molotovs leave behind fire on the ground to trap enemies, making them great for dealing with choke points or other points of tension around the map. The trade-offs are pretty balanced, they're pretty much equal, and they're pretty much good. So, that's a quick rundown of our entire arsenal in Payday 2. I didn't cover everything, but if you're a more experienced player and you have a favorite weapon I didn't mention, leave it in the comments below to help out some newer players. That'll be it for me, so tune in next time when we cover skill trees and perk decks. Thanks for watching, until next time I will see you around. If you like this video and you'd like to see more, I'd recommend subscribing. Patreon and social media links are in the description.